What's up, guys? We have a game with the white pieces against Big Till. He's actually rated 1621, the highest rated opponent, the first one over 1600, and over 100 points rated higher than us on our speed run. I thought he was going to open up with a French, but instead he goes bishop e7 on move 2. No clue what's happening. I'm going to go here. The drawback of his move is it undefends the g-pawn on move 2 of the game. So queen g4 is very non-standard, but how do you defend that pawn if you don't go back or go forward and walk into e5? And if that's the case, what? e5, attacking the pawn, opening the bishop. I take the pawn. He attacks my queen. I go back with my queen. He takes the pawn. Very interesting by him. Very interesting by him. Alternatively, this pawn is hanging. And if he tries to swipe me with a fast one of these, then I can take this pawn and there's no bishop f6. So let's take this pawn that's hanging instead of this pawn that's hanging. Now that he can't go here, I can always take it and run like a bandit. Okay, so he defends this way, creating major dark square weaknesses. And now we're just up a pawn. Awesome. He also can't develop his knight to its favorite square. Awesome. So we want to develop and castle queenside ASAP. So we develop this knight. It has a good square. He now attacks our queen and the pawn. But I see it. No big deal. Which square? I'm gonna go here. It defends the pawn and keeps it kind of on an active third rank. And most importantly, it doesn't get in the way of my other developing, squares for my pieces, which I think is important. This pawn is hanging. He could throw, let's say, a bishop here. Oh no, it's pinned. Scratch that. If he throws a knight here, let's take the pawn. It hits the rook, and if he can't go bishop f6, let's do it. He throws the knight in, but now we can develop our knight. Our bishop. He is going to hit our knight, but, wow, I can't even speak. He's going to hit our queen with his knight. Should we stop him from castling? If we do that, he's going to jump his knight in, then we take with check. Let's do this and open up the square for our rook. If he goes here, maybe we pin it. Pin it to win it. Just keep developing. Now we're saying you can't castle. He thought we were going to come in, so now he's wasting a rook move stopping it. I don't mind seeing that. I do want a long castle. Currently I can't because of his queen. Is there a way we could block it temporarily? We could just put the rook on d1. I kind of want to castle though, although I do want my bishop on c4 or b5 to pin. Decisions. Maybe we can start with the knight. Let's start with the knight and see if we're allowed to put that in the center to block. Okay, so he moved his rook and now is double forking us. So, okay, I guess we have to give up the bishop. Okay. he goes g5, attacking our queen, cutting off the connection between queen and bishop so that he can win the bishop cleanly. That's very fair. Very fair. Something's extremely suspicious about this, however. This position looks very loose. I wonder what it could be. Well, first of all, let's just take this pawn and remove our bishop from the danger. Now he recaptures, threatening the queen. We can't let him take the queen, so we're going to take the bishop. He has to take our piece back with one of two heavy pieces, both of which I can make some type of forcing move. This one, he takes... That knight was protected, it wasn't hanging, so why he's just sacking it like this, I'm not sure. He could have just taken a free knight, but now I also take a free knight, so this is a bit weird. I'm so confused. He's hitting my queen. I take the bishop. Why doesn't he just take my knight? I don't get it. Instead he takes this pawn, but hangs checkmate in one. That was so weird. Were we even losing there? What? He just blundered mate in one. So we have another game against a 1563. We're going to try the, again, e4, and now we're facing a Caro-Kann. Let's see if he goes, okay, traditional stuff. We're going to play the advanced Caro. We push our pawn. He plays the theoretical move, main line, bishop f5. We go h4, and all pawn moves. But that's what we do, because we want to make this bishop feel uncomfortable and threaten to trap it with g4, but he stops us. He plays h5 himself. That's fine, because that gives us the g5 square to work with, which is reasonable. I'm going to bring the bishop here and trade. Okay, now he has his structure. He doesn't have to worry about a bad bishop, but he's kind of passive overall. And yeah, he's kind of passive overall. I'm going to go f4 and just gain some more space. Maybe play for f5 in the future. He goes c5 to try to counterbalance my pawn thrust with his own. I guess the drawback of his move is he's even less developed than I am, which is kind of hard to do considering I'm barely developed. So in light of that, what should I do? I'll just support the center. No big deal. Typical French structure now, just without the light square bishops. So black is probably happy, but I'm not worried. I'm going to develop my knight to its most natural square, defend the center, look at the g5 square. I'd like to play f5 at some point, castling undefended h4 pawn, so we have to keep that in mind. So he takes. We could take with the c pawn, solidify our structure. I'm thinking we also could take with the knight, another interesting alternative. I'm going to take with the knight. It's something different. Supports the f5 square. And let's see what he does. So he develops his knight, also looking at the f5 square. He would like to probably hop into that if he could. Also the g6 square he might be going to. Who's to say? But for a moment it blocks the queen's vision. So I'm going to use this turn to castle. And now this pawn being undefended doesn't matter for one turn. Now it definitely doesn't matter because his queen goes the other way. Stares at the king, stares at the pawn, pins the knight. The knight is currently protected. All I have to do is move my king, just get it out of this pin, out of any type of weird dark square stuff, and then proceed with the rest of the game. Will black castle queenside? Maybe not. I'm not entirely sure about it. So black just takes in the center. Knight takes knight. We can recapture either way. No need to give up the queen, so let's just keep our center and give our knight a nice square to work with. The downside is that this pawn is loose and black has an easy plan of attacking it. Okay, he attacks it twice. That's also fine. You can't really defend it. Let's see, if we defend it this way, maybe he wants to take this pawn. So for one turn, we can defend it with our rook, and then we can develop our knight. It looks a little awkward, but what's black's plan? I'm not sure. We can I always prepare f5 after I consolidate d4 with however I decide to do it. So black takes the pawn. I thought you couldn't take the pawn because that's why I moved my rook here. If I go here and he goes here, that's not a pin. What am I missing? That looks like a free knight. He instant goes here, but I don't see any threats. And now I get to give this check, which means lose castling rights or queen trade down a piece. I'm happy with both of those, and there's nothing on these dark squares. And that's why, as long as you keep your bishop here, it works beautifully, it protects beautifully. And now he's like, oh man. So he moves his king. He says, okay, I'll keep it in the center. I'll connect the rooks. So now I have some control of the light squares. Let's develop the knight. If he pushes, it gives up the e4 square, which would be good for me. Otherwise, okay, so he covers this knight jump, but it's kind of a slow move. Nothing to be afraid of. I'm noticing I can go here anyway, maybe. Takes, check, king here. So what if takes, check with the rook, king here? Doesn't quite work. And okay, so let me not do that. Easy move. Now rook defends. Prepares a future b4, and I can move my bishop somewhere. I mean, b4 now even works because takes. So rook b1's a nice move. Very strong. Also now my bishop can go this way. He retreats his queen back home. But not sure what he's doing. Maybe consolidating and preparing to kick my queen away. I have this move now that his queen is in alignment with my rook. But I guess the bishop can't stay on this diagonal, which means I can then jump my knight in here, which looks awfully suspicious for him. So I'm going to go with that. He might throw in the attack on the queen. And then we'll, I guess, retreat to... There's no real squares I like. Let's go here temporarily. Just temporarily to see what happens with this bishop. Covering these squares so I can get my knight into its good outpost. And what an annoying knight that is, right? If I can somehow support it with the bishop so that when he trades, I can get a piece here. That's what I really need. I mean, what's he gonna do now? He can't let me take it because he's down a piece. And I mean, I guess he just should go here, right? Like that's the natural move. Okay, he defends it. That looks bad though. I'm just gonna take it because I'm up a piece, and then I get to develop my bishop with tempo, connecting my rooks. I mean, I did want to develop it this way, but the highway's plugged. So now I get to develop my rook, and I'll be able to utilize the dark squares with my dark square bishop. And so now this is just crushing. And now I have the only open file. Okay, he goes f6, but too little, too late. Random queen check. Didn't calculate, but I'm just getting it in on the dark squares. Let us now go. I don't know. Let's get the queen in. Double stack, threaten a queen check. Maybe we can put our queen here if he moves his. Okay, he doesn't move his. We're up a piece, so let's just trade queens. Don't really feel like thinking. Trade queens, trade rooks, move my bishop around the board. Pick up all his pawns with my king. The end. It's like a frozen dinner. It's pre-planned, pre-packaged. I know what's happening. I know what I'm getting. Lots of salt. Okay, so he moves his king. I guess that I was gonna say if I take his queen and then at the end of the line take the pawn, he gets the pawn back. But if I take the pawn first, it comes with check. He may be blundering something huge like checkmate. I want my queen here to cut his king off, so let's take check with the pawn. That pushes his king out into the open. And maybe I can swing my rook in. He does go up. I can now ignore the queen trade and go here. I could take this pawn. I can give this check. Lots of options. I'm gonna give this check because he can't block with the queen, which means his king has to go further. I mean, he could take the pawn, but then I get to pick up a pawn with check. And if he goes forward towards us, okay, so let's pick up the pawn with check. We're still up a bishop for these two central pawns. He blocks with the queen, but now I can win the queen probably, right? If I give this check, he has to stay in contact with the queen, then I give this check. Boom. I mean, or this. Okay, so now I can try to create a mating net. How do I do? He doesn't want me to see me have fun. I can respect that. We get the win. Simple, logical moves, not doing anything crazy or fantastic. Send me your rapid games. Good luck in your chess climb.